Hi there, Jean Greer here at Stylish Fireplaces with some help on how to operate your Dimplex IgniteXL Bold fireplace. So we're going to be looking at the remote control and the manual options. Always we want you to refer to your owner's manual. So this is where you're going to find instructions on all the different ways to operate your unit. So we're going to open up to the operations pages and we're going to see instructions on how to run the unit using the touchpad and the remote, and more we're going to have instructions on the app that's available. So this fireplace has an app, and there would be separate instructions on how to set the app up on your phone and how to use that app to control the fireplace. So I'm going to focus on the remote and the manual touchpad that's on the unit. The first thing you're going to notice about this unit is you're not seeing anything, but there's a red light here. This fireplace has standby mode. So technically it's in standby and the heater is engaged, but the flames and none of the lighted colors are on. So that means that I could have the heater running on this fireplace overnight. So in the cold weather in this showroom, we use some of our fireplaces strategically to keep the place at a minimum temperature overnight so that it doesn't take so long to heat things up in the morning. And you could use this in your home the same way. So that's what we call standby mode. The heater is engaged, but the flames and all of the lights are off. So now I'm going to come to the remote and I'm going to use this, what we normally think of as the power button, to turn the fireplace on or off. So there goes my light. It's no longer in standby mode. I turned it on and it says your temperature is set to 52 Fahrenheit, and so the heater is not coming on. If I want to see flame, I'm going to hit the flame button. So now whatever settings I left it with when I turned it off the day before is going to come back on with those settings. So now I have my flames and I have some of my accent lighting, and I've turned on the flame effect. So whatever lights were on when this was turned off last, those will all come back on. Even though I'm hitting the flame button, it's not just the flames that come back on. So we have a flame effect. Our heater button, typical with a Dimplex remote, is the squiggly line. So I see a squiggly line here. That's telling me the heater is engaged on some level. If I don't want the heat on and the weather is hot and I don't need it, I'm going to hit that squiggly line button on my remote, and now the heater is not engaged. If I hit it again, it's engaged, and the first thing it tells me is my heat setting on the unit, 52. The heat in this room is 76, so the heater's not going to come on for now, but it is engaged. This unit also has the ability to disable the heater, and that's something that happens on the touchpad, not something I can do on the remote. So I'm going to touch the touchpad and the heat button and the heat minus, the temperature minus button. If I hit them at the same time, I get those three dotted lines. That tells me the heat is disengaged. So if somebody comes along and tries to turn on the heater, they will not be able to turn it on. This is a family-friendly feature that we really like. Obviously, this touchpad, if it's lit up at all, any little human who's down at this level, so your kids are down at this level and they're going to touch things, and they could inadvertently turn on the heater when you don't want the heater turned on. They could also grab the remote and start pushing buttons and turn on the heater. Maybe you have a rental unit and you don't want the heater engaged all of the time. So that heat disable function is a way of locking the heat functions, and only if I come back and hit those buttons again, just engage this, if I hit them again, as soon as I see a temperature button, it's engaged again. So it's a little bit sensitive, but it will work if you press the heat squiggly line and the temperature minus button at the same time. You'll disengage or re-engage the heater. So keep that in mind. It's a really handy feature to have. We also have temperature up and temperature down. So if I want to turn, once the heater is engaged, this is how I set the temperature. And if I hold them both at the same time, I can change from Fahrenheit to Celsius, again on the touchpad. So I'm going to light this up, and if I hit both at the same time, I can go from Fahrenheit to Celsius or back again. So that's how we get the reading that we're most comfortable with. You don't have to stick with one or the other. You can have Fahrenheit or Celsius with your temperature readings. The flame speed can be adjusted. So I've got kind of that little odometer looking thing is going to adjust the flame speed. So I can hit that and you're seeing FS3, FS4, FS5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've got 5 different settings for the flame speed. You set it the way it looks best for you. Some of us like it really speedy. Some of us like it slow. Generally, we're going to like it somewhere in between. And then we have heat mode. So Dimplex has been known to have eco functions and heat boost functions on some of their other models. On this unit, they're combined. So you see the leaf with the lightning bolt. So the leaf for eco, the lightning bolt for boost, it's all combined in one function. So it's going to, if I hit that button, turn our heater on, and then I hit that leaf with the eco. So the first setting is eco. It's saying I'm going to pull the heat element back to its minimum setting to save energy. I hit that button again, I've got fan with no heat, and this fireplace is able to have the fan running without any heat at all. So if you just want to circulate the air in the room, in that space, you could run the fan alone. And then if I hit the leaf again, it goes to normal. So at normal, what it's going to do is it's going to read the temperature setting that I've put on the thermostat, and it's going to regulate the heater to keep us at the temperature we want. So I had it set at, if I have it set at 70, the heater is going to go on and off and read the room temperature to keep us at 70 degrees. And then if I hit my leaf again, this is heat boost. It's going to push it to its maximum setting for 20 minutes, and when the 20 minutes expires, the heater will go back to whatever other setting we want. If I don't want that, I go back to eco, and after a few seconds, it will adjust, cool itself down, and go to the eco function. And I can just go back to fan and get rid of the heater altogether. So those are your heat functions. It's a toggle. You just keep pressing that until you get the setting you want. It's all combined in one button as far as regulating the fan and how much heat you're going to get with the various temperature settings. We also have mood lighting. So the mood lighting on this one is the paint palette. That's fairly standard for a Dimplex remote. And there are 8 different settings here. So I can have, there's a combination of light below and light from above, and as you cycle through, you'll get different combinations of colors. Some of it's coming from above, and you can see that light halo there, and some of it's coming from below, and sometimes it's a combination. And so you can let it go through. There's a bunch of presets, and when you get to 6 and 7, it will cycle through. On 6, it will cycle through together. And on 7, the top and bottom lights will cycle independently. So you get quite different effects. And on 8, they call it midnight mode. None of the extra lights are on, just my flames. The flames themselves can be set to different colors, and that's this button down on the corner of the remote here. So we have different flame settings here. That's 2. At 3, you see some blue creeping in here. That's new for Dimplex. They typically haven't had blue flames. At 4, you've got all blue. At 5, you've got just the orange. And at 6, you've got orange and yellow back in there. So, and at 7, you've got a bit of both. So you cycle through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and get different flame settings for your liking. So we'll just get to the orange and the yellow combination there. You have a brightness button here. The one that looks like an asterisk is brightness. So I can change the brightness. You can kind of see it going up and down inside there in terms of brightness. When that brightness button isn't a brightness button is if I have the color changing option. So when I get to 6 and 7, you see how this is set to freeze. So that happened with that star button. So on 6 and 7, the colors are changing. Remember, they're cycling through. If I like a particular combination and I want to hold it, I use that star button to hold, and it will freeze it at that wherever it is. that means the brightness isn't working. So as long as I'm using that star button to hold those colors, it isn't going to control the brightness of the lights inside. So just keep that in mind. It has a couple of different functions, and if it's engaged in holding these colors, it isn't going to help me with the brightness. So I would have to take it off of that setting, and then I would have to be not on 6 or 7, and then I could use the star to control brightness. So there we go, we can control brightness at that point. The other neat thing that Dimplex has on this model is a sensor that senses the amount of light in the room, the ambient light sensor, and then it will adjust the brightness of the flames and the colors to adapt to the brightness of the room. And so that's kind of a cool feature, because in a really bright room, you're going to need different light settings than you would in a darker room. We all know these fires are going to look much brighter in a darker space. So Dimplex, once you engage that ambient light sensor, the flames will adapt to the light conditions in the room. So day and night, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a cool feature to have, and not one that everybody has. And last but not least, we have a timer feature. So a lot of our fireplaces have a timer. This is what we call a sleep timer. So if I set the sleep timer, I can go from half an hour up to 8 hours, and that's going to tell the fireplace when to turn itself off. I don't have to use the timer to turn it off, but if I've got people in the house, or a situation where maybe somebody's going to come into the room and forget about the fireplace and leave the room, or they're going to fall asleep in front of the fireplace, the sleep timer will tell it to turn itself off after a set amount of time. The heater will take care of itself. If I don't want the heater on, or I've set it to a thermostat setting, the heater will engage itself on and off. It's not really about the heater so much, but the whole fireplace will turn off when the sleep timer expires. And then there's one more function I can do on this touchpad that I can't do on the remote, and that's to do a factory reset. So I just want to get this back here. If I do a factory reset, I hit the heat button and the flame button, and if I hit those at the same time, it's taking all of the controls back to the factory setting. It also disengages the Wi-Fi, so now I'm going to have to reconnect the app if I need to do that. But if I just need to reset the whole thing for whatever reason, those are the buttons I push. It's not something I can do on the remote. So there are a few reset features that only happen on the touchpad, and lockout features that don't happen on the remote. So those are some basic instructions on how to use the touchpad and the remote on the Dimplex IgniteXL Bold. Always refer to your owner's manual for the functions you don't use very often. The instructions are all there. They're pretty straightforward, and you can always find your owner's manual at stylishfireplaces.ca. Look up the product you have, and under installation, you'll always find an owner's manual.